Well, it's summertime, and many people are planning vacations. And one place we highly recommend that you check out, we recommend that here from your friends at Third Rock Radio, is Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex down in Florida. There's so much to see, there's so much to do, but I could sit here all day and talk about KSCVC, but I have somebody I think can do a much better job than I. It is veteran NASA astronaut Winston E. Scott. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing just fine. Happy, what is today? Wednesday? Happy Wednesday to you.
Happy Wednesday indeed. Now, Winston, you have quite a snazzy title. Now, you are the Director of Operational Excellence at KSCVC. So you're not the president, you're not the CEO, but you are the Director of Operational Excellence. I dig that title. Now, what does that entail? What do your duties entail with that?
I wrestle with that every day. I'm trying to find out, determine if I have some real value, or they give me a fancy title to make me feel good. But in all seriousness, though, the role I have is one that is very, very important to the visiting public, because when they visit the Kennedy Space Center any day of the year that it's open, they get a chance to interact with astronauts, people who have actually flown in space. And these are astronauts, of course, that come from all over the 50 states of the U.S. and international. And among other duties, I coordinate those visits and those schedules to ensure that people have this experience. So essentially, that's what I do. And that's, again, the thing that's so unique about KSC. You get to meet some real live space heroes, not talking about myself, but the ones who come in from all over. Absolutely.
Well, that's definitely an excellent thing you're doing then. I guess that your title doesn't entail that. That's great. But I do want to hear more about all the stuff going on at KSCVC. But it's not every day I could talk to someone who has actually been up in space. So if you can please let me ask a few questions on this subject. Now, you flew on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. How many missions were you on board there?
That's right. I was on 2 missions, actually. One mission was on Endeavour, and then my second mission was aboard Columbia.
Oh, okay.
2 space shuttle missions aboard 2 different space shuttles.
Wow.
That's right.
Now, did you have a favorite? Which one did you like more, Endeavour or Columbia?
Actually, it's really interesting. Endeavour was the newest shuttle at the time. Columbia was the oldest shuttle at the time. So I got to fly on the newest and the oldest. And there was very, very little difference. When you have a small fleet of vehicles, it's easy to upgrade and keep them all very, very standard. So if I had to pick a favorite, I would say Columbia, only because the mission was longer. I was on Endeavour for 9 days and on Columbia for 16 days.
Oh,
so
wow.
A long mission, therefore, I would say that's probably my favorite. But the shuttles are really pretty much the same. Very little difference.
Well, think about this, people. This man, you flew over, I think it was 10 million miles in space. 10 million?
10 million. I'm not getting a frequent flyer miles for that, although I wish I could. But absolutely. And if you want to, I know you're going to talk some more about flying in space, and
sure,
we can. But we can certainly tie that back to my job there, my duties at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, because I didn't go into all of it. But the thing that's so unique about the complex is this is probably as close as many people will get to actually flying in space themselves. This is not a museum where you go look at old dead stuff. This is a see, touch, feel, climb in, shake, rattle, and roll experience. For example, visitors who come to the complex get a chance to ride what we call the shuttle launch experience. And it is a very, very good simulation to what I felt when I actually launched in space aboard Endeavour and Columbia. So the visitors will climb into this thing, they'll strap in, it will recline them, and then they'll launch, or simulate a launch with the shaking and vibrating, the smoke coming up around the windows, and they'll feel the acceleration push them into the seats. And when they get to main engine cutoff, they'll feel as though the engine's cut off and they're floating forward in the seats. The seat belts will hold them on. So again, it's just a tremendous place where they can experience tremendous opportunities similar to what I actually experienced when I flew in space.
Well, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. Now, what are some other things at KSCVC that you, as an ambassador, what are the things that people just cannot miss? They have to do that, besides the shuttle launch, which sounds very exciting.
Shuttle launch experience is one of them. Also the Apollo Saturn V Center, When they enter that center, they will actually see an Apollo moon rocket. This one was scheduled to actually go to the moon before the program was canceled, but it's actually on display, and they will marvel at the size of this thing. There are space capsules. The Apollo 14 capsule, the actual capsule that flew to the moon and back and splashed down, is on display. There are other artifacts, moon buggies, moon rocks. They can actually touch and feel moon rocks if they want to. There's space suits in there. The prototypes that never made it to production, all the way up through moon suits that actually were flown on the moon. Also inside the Kennedy Space Physical Complex is the Atlantis exhibit, where they will see the real space shuttle Atlantis that flew the final mission of the shuttle era. So that's on display. They can get real up close and personal with the Atlantis and just marvel at the size of this thing and the complexity of it. And there's just so much. I could go on and on and on and on. But again, I emphasize the fact that that it's a real immersive experience. We have a program called Astronaut Encounter, and that's a program done in an auditorium. It's including an admission. All the visitors come in will have an opportunity to sit down and hear an astronaut give a presentation and then ask him or her some questions. If they want a more intimate setting, we have a program called Chat with an Astronaut. And it's kind of like a fireside chat. You got an astronaut, and a very, very small, intimate group of people. And you get to interact in a very informal manner with this person who has flown in space. We have the Heroes and Legends. We've got the Gateway exhibit, which shows you actual hardware of modern era that has actually flown in space. For example, the booster that sent Elon Musk Roadster up around Mars, that booster's in space. We've got the Orion capsule, the prototype Orion capsule that flew the test flight. That's on display. So you got real hardware that's actually flown in space, and real activities where people can touch, feel, and sense what it's like to handle some of this equipment.
Well, we are having a chat with an astronaut right now on Third Rock Radio. It is Winston E. Scott. Now, I have to ask you, you did numerous spacewalks when you were up in space on your missions. It's a silly question, but what is that like? Do you realize you are walking in space, or are you just focused on the task at hand? How do you...
People ask me that question all the time, and my initial answer is, well, there's nothing I can say to make you feel it. I can try and describe it for you, because unlike anything anyone on Earth has ever experienced. In fact, a lot of people who have flown in space did not have the opportunity to actually do a spacewalk, and I was very fortunate. I did 3 spacewalks. And even though we call it spacewalking, we're not actually walking. We're floating where we need to go in low Earth orbit. And we actually move ourselves hand over hand. There are handrails and handholds strategically placed throughout the space shuttle and my day space station nowadays. So you're floating. Now, it's physically very difficult to do because the spacesuit itself weighs over 300 pounds on Earth.
Wow.
In space, doesn't weigh anything, but you still have over 300 pounds of mass in addition to your body mass and your tools. So physically speaking, is the most demanding thing that we do. But I will tell you this, being outside on a spacewalk, circling the Earth every 90 minutes, 45 minutes in sunlight, all about 45 minutes in nighttime. You can feel the heat in the sunlight. You can feel the chill on the dark side of the Earth. It is an absolute incredible experience, not for the faint at heart. So 2 things are happening when you're on a spacewalk. You're marveling at where you are and what you're doing. You're outside, you're your own spacesuit, traveling at 17,500 miles per hour, but you're also focused on the task at hand, whatever you're supposed to be doing. You got to keep your mind on the task at hand to get it done correctly and safely.
See, I don't think I could get any work done because I'd be just looking around like, oh, what? I don't know if I could work.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's quite an experience. I can remember on my very first spacewalk, I floated up to the sill of the space shuttle. I'm down inside the big walls were above me. So I used my hands and I floated myself up to the top. I grabbed the handholds. I pulled myself up and over, and I looked down at the Earth. When I looked down, I could see how high we were and how fast we were moving. incredible speed to see the Earth moving below you, beneath you like that. And I felt as though I was going to just tumble over and fall to the ground. Of course, I didn't. I'm in space, I'm weightless. But my point is, the sensation is tremendous. It is an opportunity that I marvel and cherish every day of the week. But it's certainly not for the faint at heart.
Now, when you say that, I mean, were you nervous? I mean, were you scared, or is it just, this is my duty, I got to get this mission done?
No, scary is not the right word. You're excited. You got to get the mission done. You're excited about being out there. But it's just, it's just, again, it's not for everybody.
I ain't going to lie. I would be scared, okay? You excited me, probably scared. All right, well, enough of my
amazing experience.
Enough of my fanboying with you, Winston. Let's get back to the KSCVC. Now, for people who have not been, it is a massive, massive place, and like you said, it's a lot of interaction. I would recommend make it a full weekend, because you're going to be there. You're going to see a lot of stuff, and you need to pack a lunch because you're going to be busy, right?
There is no way you can see everything in one full day. You definitely need to have you need a minimum of maybe a full day, but you won't see everything.
Right.
And you're right. It is a huge place, and it's more than one. There's more than one section to the complex. You've got the main complex where it has things like I already described, for example, Atlantis, Shuttle Launch Experience, Gateway, Heroes and Legends, and Chat With, and so on. But then the bus tours. You actually ride the tour bus, and it'll take you out to the launch pads, out to the what we call the beach house or the conference center. The conference center is the place where astronauts isolate themselves for the last few days prior to launch. And this is where you can go to get away from the public and begin to really mentally prepare yourself for what you're about to do. See, for the year that you've been training, you're so focused on technology and on engineering and doing your job and operations, you really don't have a chance to reflect on what you're about to do.
Right.
So when you're in quarantine, you can spend time at the beach house or the conference center and sort of reflect now and mentally prepare yourself to go do what you're going to do. So you got the bus tour to take you out to all of these pads. The bus can also take you out to the Apollo Saturn V Center, which is a totally separate area from the main visitor complex. And that's when you get to see all of the Apollo era artifacts that I mentioned earlier, the Saturn V rocket, the Apollo capsules, the Apollo spacesuits, and so on. And you mentioned packing a lunch. Of course, you did that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because people who visit the visitor complex have the choice of restaurants there to eat. There's plenty of food available at the center, so you can go in and sit down, order lunch, or burgers, pizzas, or whatever, and the snack bars set up all over the place. If you happen to do the Chat With an Astronaut, there's food served right there. If you do the breakfast Chat With, there's a breakfast served. It's all part of the admission for Chat With. Or if you do the afternoon Chat With, then there's lunch set up for you, and people can go back and eat as much as they want. But it is truly a full experience that runs the range from simulating flying in space to eating lunch and dinner. Just incredible.
See, this is why, Winston, you are the director of operational excellence. You see how he tied all that together? That is perfect. If you need details on KSCVC, you can go to KennedySpaceCenter.com. But again, because we're here in Houston, that's where Third Rock Radio is based, and we have the Johnson Space Center, which is very large, but KSC is even bigger, and so it's well worth the trip this summer if you're going to be making a family vacation. It's fun for everybody. Winston, it's great to meet you, and thank you so much for joining us today on Third Rock.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.